going to take a look at two things. One is object linking using this object called logo whip, and this is on the CD. And we're also going to look at how you save your calculations, because as you've probably found by now, some of these calculations take a long time. And there is some variation for whatever reason between the calculations. So if you're planning to render out your animation or to do it over a network, you want to basically bake that calculation. You want to have that calculation calculated once and saved, and every time you render, it will pull up from those same numbers. So right here I have my object, which is basically a 3D extruded object, just a piece of text, and I also have a chain of 2-point polygons. Which we can see right there is my chain of 2-point polygons. Let's pop into Modeler for a second and examine this. Now they are two layers in the same object, not absolutely necessary, just for the sake of convenience. I have the two pieces of geometry as one object. So our object here, not even beveled, just a piece of text typed in and extruded. I also created a chain of 2-point polygons, and just because it seemed like the right thing to do, I adjusted my points so they kind of matched up with the breaks of the object here. I don't know how important that is, but it bothered me when it wasn't that way. So I'm not going to go over how you create and extrude text, but I will touch on creating a string of 2-point polygons. People have their own ways of doing it. I find creating a flat chain of polygons probably the most efficient way. What I'm going to do is create a bunch of individual polygons and then delete some points. So I have 6 letters and a space, and just for convenience sake, I'm going to make that many chains in my polygon. So how do I do that? I'm hitting my side arrow, and it's giving me extra divisions. I could just open my numeric panel and punch that in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that would have saved me the trouble of counting. If I'd opened it up and just punched in 7, sometimes it's fun just to do things with your fingers, right? So I've got my chain of polygons. I'm going to select the top here. There are my polygons. If I hit cut, I've got these polygons. They've collapsed on themselves. And it's a string of 2-point polygons. And just because this is the way I like to do it, I go in and grab and kind of adjust those points to more or less be break in the letters. Once again, I don't know how critical this is, but I like doing it this way. Another thing I'm going to do while I'm here is create a point set to fix the end. So switch to points, select that point, click on Set, New, and call it Start Point. Previously created, I have one called First Point. Right there. Now I have a point selection set. If you remember when we were working with soft body dynamics and the cloth dynamics, we could fix a point. So we could grab it, and that's like our hard point, and whip things around. In fact, I think I'm going to go in, create a second set of selection set, and select the two ends, create a new one, and just call it endpoints. And I will delete the one I just created. We'll save this, synchronize with layout, so that I have my new point selection set when I start working with it in layout, and we will switch to layout. So the way object linking works is you have a simple object, you modify it, and then you attach some external geometry to it, and it follows it along. So let's create a little bit of animation here. down. And let's give us some dynamics. Let's go with soft dynamics. Calculate this. And we just have a solid object moving. So let's fix the end. We're going to select, we select first point. Not quite what we want. Instead of soft, let's use cloth dynamics. And we're going to pin down the end with the first point. Fix it just like we did previously with the curtain. And we have our chain of polygons whipping around. Let's see if one of the other presets looks a little nicer. Let's go with jelly. We've got kind of an interesting action going on there. So how do we tie in this object, the logo object, to the whip object? 2-point polygons. 2 steps. First of all, we need to parent the logo object to the whip object. I always like doing my parenting in the classic scene editor because it's real easy just to grab and drag. That's step 1. I accidentally created a key here, but that's okay. So right now, the object is just following the keyframe motion. So we need it to also follow the deformation. So we have our logo selected. You would think it would be in dynamics, but it's not. It's under deform. And we're going to select hard link. FX hard link. And that's all there is to it. Now let's give our logo whip a little more action. I think I wanted to move and whip around a little bit more. Do it this way. Maybe a little bit that way. A little bit of rotation. And it will need to be recalculated. I have calculated the motion with once I've added some of the rotation. You can see how it all follows along. We do have a bit of a problem with some interpenetration of some polygons over here. By the way, I'm doing some of these calculations offline and pausing the recording so you don't have to sit here for even 2 minutes while the calculation goes on. Here is the interpenetration. Now we can live with that, or we can try to play with things a little bit, but I'm just going to let it go for now because I want to get into the next section, which is how to save this motion. I'm going to go into properties. I've got this calculated. It's a fairly decent motion, and I want to save this. I don't want to sit through the calculation over and over again. So I'm going to go into logo whip under properties. I use cloth effects under file. Now this is what happens. We're in the wrong one. Here we go. Under file, when I save this motion, and the motion is actually the displacement is saved as an MDD file. So I've made a little directory called MDD, and I'm going to save this file, overwrite it, yes. Now what's going to happen, see how all these are ghosted out, all my settings? I can't change anything now. And if I save this, save scene as, we'll go as link saved. When I load that scene up, it will remember all those motions. In fact, let's clear the scene, yes. Load the scene again, and that was link saved. Sure enough, I did not have to recalculate. However, if I come back a day later, maybe I did this at 4 o'clock in the morning, thought it was the most awesome thing I ever saw, woke up, had a cup of coffee, and thought, you know, that's not really doing it for me. I think I want to change things. Well, I have to go in. It's not that tough. Open up our panel here. It's still ghosted. All we need to do is go to File. By clicking on Clear Motion, it eliminates that. And look, all of our dynamics are gone. So I'm going to go in and change it from first point to end points, which were the points that which were the two ends. Calculate that. This is actually a lot more fun because the two ends are the ones that are fixed. Very playful, very cartoony. Now this may not be the most exciting thing, however it is very useful to save these renderings, because sometimes, although these are going fairly fast, you get into the more complicated ones and it can take minutes, maybe even hours. And also, as far as effects linking goes, now I'm just doing it with text because most of my work where I get to use any kind of artistic expression is with the logos and with the text. However, say I wanted to have something like a string of pearls or a necklace with a number of jewels on them. This might be a much better way of addressing that draping over the front of a statue, for instance. So we're using effects links to tie this logo object. Remember, this logo is not really doing anything. It has no effects tied to it other than the deform, the hard link. Very few controls on here. And the few controls are there, I did not adjust at all. The important thing is, and this is where most people mess up, is that the logo needs to be parented to the geometry that has the dynamics associated with it and calculated. And then once it's calculated, we need to go in, and if we want to save them under Dynamics, just go to File, click on Save Motion. You can save it anywhere. I just like having a directory called MDD, which is the old Motion Designer format. And once it's saved, we'll save Motion. Once it's saved, it just automatically assumes that you want to save that, you want to keep that motion with the scene file, but you have to resave the scene.